All right, David, thank you. We're just a couple hours away now from President Donald Trump's State of the Union address as he enters the second year of his second term.
The president expected to outline key policy points, including immigration, tariffs, and the midterm U.S. elections. Chief political reporter Jason Zimmerman heard from both sides of the aisle ahead of time. He's live in the newsroom. Jason.
Cami, lots of things to watch for tonight, including what the president could say about a potential conflict with Iran, as tensions build over the country's nuclear weapons program. Plus, how will Democrats react? Many are already saying they will boycott the speech. One Democrat who will be in the audience is Senator Tammy Baldwin. Her guest tonight is Kim Frederick from La Crosse County as they attempt to highlight recent GOP cuts to Medicaid. Republican Tony Weed is also bringing a guest from Northeast Wisconsin, and the president's list includes Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, and the U.S. men's hockey team fresh off its Olympic gold medal win over Canada. The women's team was also invited after winning the gold medal but declined. With the president facing criticism for Homeland Security's handling of an immigration crackdown in Minnesota and declining approval numbers, Weed expects the president to try and turn that around.
And I think the economy is a big part of the topic here tonight. Affordability. We're seeing gas prices at half price. We're seeing more money in people's pockets through great, the tax cuts that we put together. But again, I think it's going to be a very positive night.
President Trump came into office with a whole lot of promises, including promising that he would not cut Medicaid. President Trump said, we're not going to touch it. But as they said one thing, they did another. And they put together a plan that would rob seniors, kids, people with disabilities.
Giving the Democratic response tonight to President Trump will be Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. Cami, back to you.
Jason, thanks. You can watch the State of the Union address right here at 8 o'clock tonight on WBAY TV2. We'll have a reaction later tonight on Action 2 News at 10 and a breakdown tomorrow on Action 2 News this morning.